Thank you for choosing this session. This topic is near and dear to my heart. It is work that I do with PCC and outside PCC and in my own life, and presenting this to you today is already light years better than the first time that I presented this topic. Being in a smaller, more intimate space, I feel like I can interact with you properly for the topic at hand. I feel like I can get a good sense of how people are and folks' energy and attention and intention in some cases. I am Jan Blanchard. I work with PCC on the team called Get Paid. So I tend to focus most of the day-to-day work that I do on making sure that our product is configured properly, that we have the right features to help you interact with payers and patients and collect money for the work that you all do. And my other role on the team is as one of the three leaders of the team. We have a leadership triumvirate, as it were. And so the human interaction work is a big portion of what I do with PCC these days as well. This topic in this moment is a bit fraught and a little bit loaded. It was halfway through 2024 when Polly Vanchieri of the Pediatric Management Institute asked me if I would speak at the 2025 event in February in Houston. And when we compared calendars and I agreed, his next question was, what do you want to speak about? What coding topic do you want to speak about? I am known at PCC and with and among our clients as a coder. I am a professional coder, certified. It's a big focus of the Get Paid work that I do. So when I told Polly that I wanted to speak about belonging and inclusion, I expected for him to say, that's not what this conference is for. And you're the coder, stay in your lane kind of answer. And that's not Polly. Polly said, if that's what's important to you, and if you think that folks in the room are gonna benefit from it, take it away, do the talk. Little did we know that Houston in February 2025 was going to be a rather different landscape than everything that we knew in mid-2024 along these lines. And still unwavering support and an increase in the butterflies when I got up on that stage in Houston. I didn't know who I was gonna meet. I didn't know what I was gonna come up against. I had no idea what to expect. Until I got to the event and I got into the room and I noticed. I noticed that I was among people who were just as uncertain as I am, who were just as trepidatious about uttering the phrase diversity, equity, and inclusion out loud in mixed spaces and places where I didn't know everybody well. And I knew I had an opportunity to return or to not shrink. I keep doing this gesture when I try to describe how it is that I wanted to change my presentation to make it accessible. But I wanted to add space. So it's not this. I wanted to do this. I wanted to take something that's hard and hot and heavy and give it some space, because when topics like this have space, they can grow. We can look at them from different angles. We're not quite so, it's not so fraught. So that is one of my aims and one of the lessons that I learn in social justice work and in anti-racist work that I do in my personal life. Give it space. When things have space and air, there's very little that can't be broken into units, can be broken into facets and elements that are manageable and that are not insurmountable, which is what some of the equity and social challenges we face can feel like on their face, can feel like without examination or with less examination. So one of the things that I have learned to do at PCC, I've given talks I'll be at PCC 21 years next month. And I've given talks most of those years, mostly about coding, but my approach has been pretty consistent throughout. And this is something that I learned from Chip Hart. If you've seen him speak, in my very early days at PCC, I was so impressed with the way that he approaches inviting pediatricians and pediatric practices into examining themselves that I adopted it. I shamelessly steal from him, taking what he knows you all are good at and aiming that at uncommon or unfamiliar or unexamined topics in your work. So I did that here. I thought to myself, if I'm going to try and help folks see a way toward noticing and being intentional about the ways that you bring belonging and equity into your practice, I'm going to use the things that I know you already have. And that is, and I'm generalizing entirely, which is probably not recommended in this realm, and it's going to work for me. You're kind. I find people that are attracted to pediatrics to be kinder than other specialties. I've been medicine adjacent for roughly 30 years, and while I don't love stereotypes, when it comes to medical specialties, my experience bears out the things that people told me to expect from different specialties. And when people said, pediatricians have massive hearts, I tested the theory and you all proved it. So using the idea, being able to trust and know that your massive hearts are part of the toolkit that you have going into this kind of endeavor and this kind of intention is a place that I start from. Another thing that I know that you value and prioritize is your patients. So while this is belonging and equity and inclusion in your practice, that is not strictly from a practice management, from a staff management, from an only inside your walls and inside your staff perspective. This is related to your patients too. And we'll go into some exploration for the multiple identities that not only folks that work inside your walls hold and center, but the effect that has, the lasting and broad effect that has on your patient care too. So, that approach has worked pretty well for me. I'm gonna continue with that, and I hope you'll stick with me through this. There will be some resources that I share at the end that I'll touch on throughout the course of the talk. And mostly what I'm going to draw on is the work that I have done over the last 5 years or so. So through pandemic and lockdown, I had an opportunity to become a student of a Buddhist teacher, and her name is Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams. She's my primary teacher for sure, and so much of what I share with you and the experiences that I've had are based on her work. So please make note of that name if you have any interest whatsoever in a badass, amazing. I could go on. The hour will go by if I keep with the adjectives for Rev Angel. So there's attribution for that. With a few acknowledgments and a little bit of self-identification, these are the things that I bring to bear today. Like I said, I'm a coder. By training, I'm a bean counter. I'm somebody who hits tick marks and tells you there are enough tick marks or there are not enough tick marks and tries to match the way that you bill with the way that you document. That's not what we're going to talk about today. I keep having this recurring nightmare that someone's going to say, oh, this isn't a coding talk, and walk out, only because that is what I'm mostly known for. What I'm not, though, is a facilitator or a therapist. And I say that simply to acknowledge that if any of the content that comes up in here, that emerges in our conversation and our exploration, is something that makes you uncomfortable, something you're just not resourced for today, please move freely about the cabin. Please get exactly what you need. So you hear something that you just don't feel like dealing with it today. You don't want to do that labor again. You don't want to do that labor still. This isn't what you signed up for today. Even if it's just because you didn't sleep well last night or your hair doesn't feel right. Please understand we are all here in choice. Take all of those choices and do what you need. So part of the work, I've mentioned the personal work that I'm doing. Beginning in 2021, PCC began to do work to formalize living into the values that we already hold that are consistent with diversity, equity, inclusion. And the marriage of my personal work and the PCC work revealed to me that the teaching that I get from Rev Angel her life work very much focuses on the idea of belonging, the importance of belonging in human relations. And I was talking with Maria just a little while ago about how central I think that idea is to our abilities to really truly see one another. When we are interested in finding belonging, there's a lot that we will ignore. There's a lot that we will look past in search of that. So belonging will come into the picture as well as we have this discussion today. But PCC in 2021 launched a project called the Abide Project. And being a Buddhist, not a Buddhist in training, I have to laugh every time Rev Angel describes her work. When people ask her what her philosophy is or what she follows, she calls herself Buddhish. So she's trained Buddhist, and the tenets that she follows now are flex. You know, she, again, I could go on for hours about her teachings. Let's stick with the topic. But in 2021, I was very excited to have some influence over what we call the project, because one of the tenets of Buddhism is in abiding. So living in the world as it is, abiding in what it is that is present to where you are, who you are, what's in your environment. So we're calling it the Abide Project, and that is an acronym for Access, Belonging, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. So, and Arlo is a member of the team, one of the teams that works with the Abide Project too, so you're in good company here. The work that we're doing involves, unsurprisingly, a lot of trust building. So we are a mostly white company, not entirely and mostly. And the trust that we have to build with ourselves and each other to do this work well and honestly is so much of the work. We have had this project, Arian as well is a member of the team with the adorable bucket hat, is a member of this team. He can attest to the push and pull that it takes for us. We have started and abandoned two versions of this project so far. And Maria was a member of the very first iteration of this before she retired and took her very well-deserved retirement. That, I think, is a testament to the difficulty of this work. We didn't understand. You can't know what you know until you know it. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And the difficulty and the friction that comes from discussing concepts like this, things that are very, very central to who each of us is, that isn't a thing you often do at work. It's not often a thing you have to do at work. So the people that choose to do this are returning to the table. And for that, I am deeply, deeply grateful, because that's where we're giving each other that space. We're all learning together that lesson of needing to quit forcing it. Like we're not gaining anything by pushing and doing it faster. So that has been a large part of the work since 2021. In this last year, we've moved into the realm of identifying things that we can take action on in order to get PCC's systems and behaviors and programs and demonstration, we can demonstrate our values. So now that we've defined our values better, we have good understanding, broader understanding than I think we ever did before of our values. We can live into them and bring them into our daily work and into our systems as much, and maybe more important than anything is systemically support our values and not be performative, not do it for the sake of ticking the DEI boxes. So it's taking a long time. It's killing some of us that it's taking so long, and we want it to move faster and we want it to do well. So balance is the name of this game. One of the things that keeps me in this work is, as a member of a variety of cultures, some of them dominant, some of them not, in the US in 2025, my curiosity and the seeking and the learning that I love to do is a huge asset in this. So as you are either contemplating beginning or continuing and fostering any effort in your practice in this realm, curiosity, if you've got folks that you know are like incisive, curious, lifelong learner types, they may be people that you want to ponder and think about bringing them into an effort like this. That is definitely an asset. The thing that I think, rather than coming to you and saying, I have a plan for your practice, here, take this and go forth and make or improve your diversity, equity, inclusion efforts in your practice. The two things that I think are critical to everyone having before you even look at how a program like that would work for you is understanding of the importance of belonging and a practice of noticing. So most of what I'm going to do today is exercise and encouragement to help you notice. We're going to go through a couple of exercises to impress upon you how slowing down changes what you notice, to invite your senses, and to maybe give you an idea, give you a little bit, not a roadmap, but like a vision into what noticing, the effect that noticing can have in this kind of work. As I go through this work, the lesson that I learned, the hardest lesson and the most repetitive lesson that I'm learning is that I can't know what I don't know. So if you're in a practice where you have not yet begun a program like this, if these efforts are informal and you're trying to vision a way to make them formal, the thing that I know to be true is that you're going to screw up. There is so much at stake, and there are so many pitfalls for all of us just in relating in a different way than we're socialized in this country, in most of the parts of this country. Knowing that you're going to make mistakes, I think is paramount. And I think setting that expectation is part of what lets me continue the work. I came from a family where academically, I was one of the higher achievers among my siblings. I've got 4 older siblings. And making mistakes was not a thing that was encouraged. There was like this perfectionist kind of culture in our family. You'd be ridiculed, you'd be mocked. Your mistakes were kind of called on the carpet and you were made an example of. And that doesn't serve me in this work because it made me so timid that I was frozen. So any effort that you can make toward, or any acknowledgement, any resilience you can build around being able to make a mistake and live with it, not just live with it, but expecting mistakes. That is part of some of the team culture that I try to build and get paid is, please don't go through your days believing that you either won't make mistakes or have to hide them if you do. They are expected. This is natural human learning for us to make mistakes. We are not perfect. Perfection is impossible. It's touted as the ideal, and it's not achievable. So please don't spin your wheels and make yourself crazy and hide the learning that you're doing. When you make a mistake, you're doing something that someone else might have had the impulse to do. What the value that comes out of the mistakes is to acknowledge them, to apologize when harm is a result of the mistake, but don't stop. Commit to knowing that the mistake is part of it. Don't let the shock of a mistake, don't let mistakes be shocking. If you set the expectation they're going to happen, you can roll past them that much more easily. Not roll past them. And this is me learning, don't use clunky language. So that was clunky, let me restate that. Not rolling past, but acknowledging and building on the mistakes as opposed to kicking them under the carpet. One of the ways that I am best able to acknowledge my errors is if I slow down. When I'm moving really, really quickly, all I want in life is to just keep going. I get on a path and I just run. And I think my mistake will be so far in the rear view, it's not going to hurt anybody. Whoever it harmed is still sitting with that error and sitting with that mistake. I'm the lucky one who gets to run away from it and pretend it never happened. It's going to come back to me. So I can't recommend speed. I definitely learn from slowing down, and the space that I mentioned earlier comes much more easily at a slower pace. I remember to look for the space. I remember to take the breaths. So reducing that anxiety just from setting the expectation of mistakes is a strong recommendation I have. And I was talking with Maria a little while ago too about why, when people ask me, why do you engage in work like this? What's your why for this? And it used to be that I want to be a good ancestor. I have this sense of pride. I want someone down generations from now to say, yeah, my aunt was one of the people that marched in whatever, or created a mutual aid. It was part of a mutual aid network, or whatever the things that I'm proud of doing. I want them to know I did it. And even just in the months since I did this talk in February, that even that has shifted. So that's one example of the constant evolution. This is not one and done. This isn't because my slides are done, I have the framework for you. This is ever evolving, ongoing, for me, nonstop. I think for all of us committed to it, nonstop work. So, who is it? Why are you here? Why do I imagine people would want to come and listen to a talk like this? And when I sat still with this thought, I came up with 4 general ideas. You may fall into one, more, or none of these categories, but for the purpose of trying to get some cohesion around my thoughts and these ideas, I thought that this kind of conversation and acknowledgement and exploration would be good for people who are trepidatious about this. So whether it's in your community climate, whether it's in the national climate, whether it's in the global climate, if you envision your practice as one where launching a program like this or being intentional and public about work like this may be risky, I hope that you can take heart from some of this, because you'll see some simpler, really effective, but not necessarily grandiose ways that you can begin this work without putting it in neon. Effective ways without advertising. The other folks that may be in the audience among you are the thrivers. You are the people that for everything that you do, you're looking for ways to help the people in and around your practice do better. You're always looking for ways to lift the people around you up. You're looking for ways for your clinical care to be better, for your interpersonal skills within the office to be better, for your staff relations to be better, the thrivers. You really want everything to be as good as it can be. If you are super busy and you think you absolutely do not have, this is important to you, this work is important and compelling, and you can't imagine having one more program to launch, having one more meeting to host, or one more set of notes to share or disseminate. If that's you, there is something in here for you as well. There are personal skills that can help you be differently, be in another way in your space that can have some of these effects without it being super formalized and having to have all sorts of tools and organization and coordination. And then for sure, I hope that the leaders in this room are interested and engaged through these next few minutes. I'll illustrate to you how I think it is that power is a thing that you have whether you wield it or not. So one of the noticings that I hope that we will share, or that you will experience, whether you want to share it or not, one of the noticings I hope you'll experience is noticing your position in your practice, noticing your position in your community, noticing your position in your family, where you wield power and ways that you are marginalized and ways that you are centered, and to use that awareness and understanding to move and behave and be in ways that are more intentional and more aligned with the way that you want to be in the world. Wait, what did I skip here? This is repetition of things that I have already said. I tend to do that. I get ahead of myself and then I have to skip slides. I hope you'll forgive it. When people ask me, why do you think that independent pediatric practices should care about this work? Like, what compels people who are already strapped, already busy, already moving? Like, you're doing the thing. This isn't launching anything for you necessarily. You're already doing the thing. Why would you add one more thing or shift your focus or try to get one more? What would I compel you with to say, yes, this is effort you should put in, more effort to pediatricians, for heaven's sake? And some of the things that I think are compelling about that are the things on this slide right here. The idea that your practice is a safe and thriving place for everyone is likely an intention that you have. You want your staff to feel safe and to do their best and to learn and to grow in their roles. You want your patients to feel safe in your practice. You want them to thrive medically and physically, developmentally, emotionally. There's so much thriving that is possible with your influence. So if you are looking for a way to improve that thriving, to treat the whole patient, to acknowledge and support the whole staff, this is that is a reason to take on effort like this. There are practical reasons for this as well. There are workforce studies. I think it was the Harvard Business Review sometime last year put out a study that said that that employers who engage in ways that are understood to be encouraging of diversity and equity attract more skilled staff. So there are folks looking for work now that want to see that in the job description. The people who care about these things and who value this are gonna pass you over if they're not seeing a commitment to that, don't see your practice committing to those values and ideals. So advancing employment, the employment environment. Please bear with me while I make this a little bit bigger. I have everything but my glasses up here. There we go. The idea that you are delivering exceptional care right now is maybe part of your practice identity. If ideas of equity and inclusion are not part of that consideration and don't get your attention in the effort that you put into delivering care, you could probably be better. And what I mean by that is if you are working with a patient population who can't see themselves in your practice, in the staff in your practice, there's room for improvement there. If your staff doesn't feel safe and doesn't feel empowered or welcome to bring the whole of themselves to work, there's room for improvement there. So there are at least 2 resources from the AAP within the last 5 years that I think are relative to this and bear out the idea that patients can be made to feel safer simply by virtue of the constitution and makeup of your team and the ways that your staff show up in your office. And those are preventing childhood toxic stress. The title of that one is Partnering with Families and Communities to Promote Relational Health. And there's an early relational health framework also. I linked to both of those in the resources of these slides. So please feel free. They are super long and a lot of it above my head in scientific terms. And I can understand well enough the outcomes and the summaries, the abstracts, to say that interaction with people who, child interaction with people who make them feel safe improves clinical outcomes and helps children thrive. So if you're not compelled yet, I may just keep throwing these things at you continually. And if your practice is in a place where a community engagement could be improved, if that's a goal of yours, you want to be a bigger part of or a more central part of your community, there is no end of opportunities to engage with newer parts of your community. So if you are already part of the athletic community, if you're already, if law enforcement is a way into the community that you're engaged with or have relationship to, there may also be marginalized communities in your area that would welcome efforts, joint efforts to, there is a practice, I'm not going to remember the name. The PPMA, the Pediatric Practice Managers Association. Did I get, remind me. Management Alliance, Pediatric Practice Management Alliance, is a division of SOPM. Is anybody here a member of SOPM? Or is everybody here a member of SOPM? Anybody not? Or you don't know? Highly recommended. Less than $100 a year for membership, I believe, these days. And the resources that are available, including a webinar series about topics and opportunities and efforts exactly like this, are part of the offerings of the PPMA. There's a webinar series from late last year where a clinician shared a story of being, I believe they started out in the Bay Area somewhere, and their career trajectory, their family and life trajectory took them into a rural part of, I'm misquoting this, I'm sure, Iowa, where they were able to be one of the very first LGBTQIA welcoming pediatric practices for miles and miles and miles around. And the effect that had on the community and the opportunities that created for the practice is just one part of this case study. It was a really awesome presentation. I have been impressed by the narrative and not any of the details that I mentioned. I'm 54 years old. My memory is not what it was. So I could go on for the rest of my time, just giving you anecdotes, giving you case studies, describing reasons and possibilities and opportunities. But what we're going to do is something just a little bit different. I wanted to bring this into your own awareness. The thing that I think is one of the most powerful tools in persisting in work like this is, like I said at the start, to capitalize on something that everybody in here has. And from my Buddhist training, it would not be a shock to any of you to hear me say that I try to pay close attention to breath. Breath is one of the tools that I employ. And that's something that we all have with us all the time. So returning to my breath, returning to myself, just being in my body is one of the ways that I can assure myself or right myself if I feel like I'm in a situation where I'm out of my depth, where I'm with folks with identities that I don't hold, and I feel that wonky energy, that noticing of this is an opportunity, this is a place for improvement. I can always return to my breath, and I've always got my body right here. One of the intersections that I really love about these topics is, as a pediatrician, you're a scientist too. So the idea that data is useful to you and your comfort with receiving data and analyzing it as a scientist turns this noticing and turns all of this raw data that our bodies, like these meat and skin and bone bags, we are like data sensing machines. It's a different kind of data than we pay attention to most times, but there's forever, constantly data coming in that can be useful in endeavors like this. So I'm gonna walk us through a couple of minutes of receiving data like that, and then invite you guys to notice and hopefully share some of what you notice. One of the acknowledgements, even without the embodied experience that we'll go through, is inviting you to notice. I keep saying that word, notice, notice, notice. When you are in a quiet moment and you can take a look at the role that you hold in your practice, there are probably people that you influence. And you might not immediately perceive that or characterize it as power, and it is. You hold power over people. If you are a manager or a leader, you might make employment decisions, you might make assignment decisions. You are, for sure, if you work at the appointment desk, you have the power to either give a patient an appointment or not. You can make their experience a good one or a bad one. You hold power. You have things that other people need, and the ways that you engage with them, the acknowledgement of that power can only make you wield it more responsibly. So I'll give you, we'll do some noticing, and I'll give you an identity wheel tool that can make more precise some of that exploration into the identities that you hold, the roles that you play, and help you come to your own understanding of your place in some of the power dynamics in all kinds of places in your life. And notice also, as we go through this exercise, we're going to notice not just data coming in, but noticing and being aware of the data that you transmit. So as much as we are sense organs, we are antennae as well. And the people in the room that work with me will know and hopefully laugh and find it as funny as I do that I lose sight sometimes of the way that I transmit. So you've heard of RBF. I'm not going to say the words out loud, but I have gotten feedback in more than a few contexts that the energy that I give off is grumpy, and I'm like commanding. I don't take nothing from nobody, and I rarely intend that. So with the gifts of that feedback, I can soften my face. I can take a deeper breath. I can breathe out a little further and realize all that carbon dioxide can't be doing good things, like get it out. I can make adjustments and hopefully show up with more of the intention that I have, like have my appearance and the way that I show up be more closely aligned with my intentions. So noticing outside, noticing inside, not things that we're necessarily trained to do, and things that are really, really difficult to do at the pace that we're expected to perform all the tasks that we get paid to do. All right. There is one One more acknowledgement about clinicians in general that I think is worth noting to make this work a little bit easier. And that is the idea that so many clinicians, the personality traits of a lot of clinicians is that you are fixers. You see a problem, you find a solution for it, you suggest or provide the solution, and there's a lot of satisfaction in that. That's a high. You know, I could spend days doing that, fixing people's problems. That is really satisfying. The problems that you may notice, or the difficulties and the rub that you may notice when you start this kind of noticing, when you slow this down, these don't all have immediate fixes. So some of the work for folks who identify as fixers is going to be in abiding in some of these problems, either having protracted fixes where relationship development is going to be the fix. You've got to spend time, be with people, develop trust. That might be the fix, as icky as that might feel and sound. Like, I can't just stick something to this person and she's going to change and be who I need her to be. She is who she is. I am who I am. If we're going to make this work together, and we're going to have to show each other care and trust. So that's not easy, and it might be what's required, right? So that you're in this room is good news in this sense. So intention has an awful lot to do with success in this realm, in my experience. Noticing that you want to be here, noticing that this is something that you care about, noticing that this is something that's important to you, that has already begun to change you. That has already begun to change. That you might go back and say to someone in your staff who wasn't able to be here, it might be nothing more than, I attended a class called. And they might think, wow, she went to a class like that? Like, she chose that class. Right? All right. You know, that might be an opening. You don't know. So a thing noticed is a thing changed, is basically, I think, Marcus Aurelius, I think I'm paraphrasing. So that you're noticing is a beginning. I can't help myself repeating over and over. This doesn't have to be mounting a huge effort. This noticing and this data gathering can really, really go. It goes so much further for me than I ever expected it to. There are things that I can't unknow about myself, and those fuel me in continuing. So I have an awful lot of hope that noticing will really be much more effective than it might sound. So let's give it a shot. So this exercise is in noticing. It's going to be an embodied exercise. I'm going to invite you to sit still quietly for a minute. I swear it'll be just a minute. I have a timer. It'll feel like so much more. And it is, it's an invitation. It'll be just a tiny little taste of what's possible when what you're noticing is all that data coming in. So just being in your body with your heart beating and the breaths you're taking naturally, just seeing the curiosity, have the curiosity to see what that does and what you notice. To set it up just a little bit, I'll invite you to close your eyes or let your gaze fall. If you're uncomfortable with your eyes closed, simply, put your gaze down at the floor in front of you. You're gonna travel into other spaces. If you're invited to think about the way that you're breathing, feel your breath as it's entering and leaving your body. Feel your feet, feel gravity, all of those things. You may feel all kinds of things. So I will begin this 1 minute, and there'll be a little bit of guidance, and then at 1 minute an alarm will go off. A very quiet alarm if I've done this right. All right, so beginning. I invite you to close your eyes and to feel where your clothing is touching you. And feel your feet on the floor. Feel the back of your legs on your chair. Feel gravity keeping you put right where you are. Notice where your attention is right now. Might be rehashing the past. And with your next exhale, invite your attention to this very moment. Notice the sensations throughout your body in this moment. That's 1 minute. My phone didn't work. Is anyone able to describe any of those sensations that you noticed? What was that like? Grounded. Relaxing and grounded. Were there any body senses? Any pressure, any energy moving in any particular place? No wrong answers. Just exploration and curiosity. My curiosity will go on and on and on. Whatever that experience was, that noticing, is that something that you do typically? Do you take breaks like that? Do you focus inward? Are there, do you spend time with this roughly 5.5 feet of flesh and bone and the beating heart and the brain inside? So slowing doesn't mean stopping. One of the bits of resistance that I come up against when I invite people to have a practice like this, even for just a minute a day, is I don't have time for this. I got things to do. All you did was slow down. And that was 1 minute. Did it feel like 1 minute? How did it felt longer? I put that idea in your head. I was kicking myself for saying it out loud. But the trust in, I swear I'm not going to keep you here all day. People are like, ring the bell. But that noticing is one kind of sensing that doesn't happen. And that type of sensing is half of the comparison that you're going to make with people that you come in contact with. Knowing what's happening in here can be the starting point for being sensitive to and being aware of and being conscious of and noticing what's happening in your immediate environment too. So one of the places that that's helpful is in noticing the ways that different kinds of people that you come in contact with appear and show up and exist in your space. And in this realm, in the equity, inclusion, diversity realm, identity is one of the kinds of language that we can use to express and understand our own experience. And it's so much more than these words on this page. And this is a tool from Arizona State University that is available. That's one of the links in the resource slide in the slide deck. And when you use a tool like this, the way that I've been taught to use it is to look at each of the realms in here. So again, I have to make this much bigger for my old eyes. Is to take a look at your own identity in each of these realms. So how would you describe your spirituality and your religion? How would you describe your socioeconomic status? Are there ways and places you would describe yourself in these terms? When you have that sense of yourself, just like in the embodied sense, gives you a sense of yourself, these identities can be an exploration that give you a clearer sense of yourself. You just lived your life. You know, we go through just living. We know it's a story about where we came from. It's a story about what we grew up with or what our life experiences have influenced up till now. This can be language that you can put to that to help you locate yourself in comparison to other people. So once when you take the time to put your own identities, multiple identities, through an exploration like this, it can be helpful then to use this lens to understand how you relate to other people in your office. If you're looking at someone who, if you're working with someone who is very differently able to you, that isn't necessarily something, your ability may or may not be something that is paramount to you. It may not be front and center in the way that you move through your day and the needs that you have and the accommodations that you want. Accommodations is not, that was clunky. The ways that you organize your life to get done what you want done in a day. That may be very, very different to the way other folks in your immediate environment need. That may be very different to their needs. So this can illuminate for us ways that we're different and help us to, accommodate's not the word I'm looking for, help us to acknowledge and relate in a way that includes all of those things. It's not changing necessarily the way that we are unless we look at this and notice, I can do better. You may find opportunities to do better, but this is the invitation I'm making is nothing more than notice. Be clear about who you're in relationship to and understand. And if you can't imagine, if you have the relationship to understand and work with people who are willing to talk about the ways that you're different, this is language that you can use to do it in meaningful, effective terms. So it's not contrast, it's simply, in this moment, this is what I know about me. Kind of exploration. I find this really, really helpful in those terms. It creates relationship and it creates awareness of places for improvement. And when you look at the folks that you work with through a lens like this, the opportunities that come from it are things like, are there things here that would disconnect people from one another? Is there anything at play in relationships in our practice that would, in any of these realms, that would disconnect people from one another? Am I noticing that there is generational split? Are the folks that have been here a while or the folks that have been in their career for a long while separating themselves from folks that have not been in their career as long? Is it generational? Is it experience level? What are the ways that people are organizing themselves? You start looking at this and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, I didn't notice that folks of a particular national origin are gathering themselves, or folks that speak a language, which makes perfect sense, are congregating and organizing themselves socially. Are there opportunities for noticing those things and either supporting greater connection across these identities or supporting those identities themselves? It's not necessarily that expressing these identities and fostering improvement or, I can't come up with a better word than accommodation. There's got to be a better one. I need a thesaurus next time. Is just fostering what's going to help people thrive. It's acknowledging the things that are going to help them be their full self. And so now we're going to do the same exercise, and I'm gonna offer slightly different invitation. All right, so you guys are old hat at this now. So find your feet. And you'll have to trust me that I'll just say ding when the minute is up. This phone isn't doing what I asked it to. So with the same setup, it's going to be, find your feet, find your seat, let gravity do its thing. Close your eyes if that's comfortable. And in this noticing, rather than internal, we're going to spend a minute noticing what it is we feel from without. So in this silence, see if there's energy, expectation. Notice who's at the table you're at. Notice who's to your right. Notice who's to your left. And simply be with the energies and the bodies and the people around you. So with your next exhale, settle in for 1 minute of noticing. That's 1 minute. So that simple 2 minutes out of an hour is a different way of receiving data, a different way of noticing. And you can do that anywhere, anytime. If you feel like you've said something clunky like I have, if you want another shot at it, a moment and a breath can help you tune into what effect you might have had, what you said. And even, I find it even more effective when I haven't done something skillless. In the quiet moments, I'm able to notice and build trust in myself and remind myself that these connections and these relationships are the whole reason that I'm here. Did anybody notice anything they'd like to talk about in that second minute? Not talk about, but share. Let's go into the history of it and how it makes you feel. Feelings? When I did this once before, I had a woman reply, when I started the minute, I felt like I was in a pot that was about to boil. And by the end of the minute, someone had turned off the heat. And it was a really lovely, it seemed to me a great representation of how we have control and we have power, and our own awareness can change our experience. When we can notice, we have space for that breath, we have space for the silence, which is my favorite bit. I love a good bit of silence. Thank you for being such good sports with that. It's a weird thing to ask somebody to do at a medical conference. So with this new skill, what do I know? May not even be new to you. Some of you could probably teach this class. But with this awareness, I hope that the prospect of bringing these principles or fostering these principles in your practice seem a little bit more plausible, a little bit easier to do, and you're a little bit closer to your intention, whether you showed up here and realized this isn't what you want. Knowing yourself, getting a little bit closer to what you really want, and being able to align your intention with the ways that you move and move through your practice and through your days. I hope that this helps align those a little bit better. If supporting diversity, equity, inclusion, and especially belonging, I could talk about that for days, is something you do want to pursue, the AAP's got some great resources for that. So they've got, as I said, webinars through PPMA, and some of your peers are already doing things like this. The people that hosted those webinars, the clinicians that gave case studies, already have all sorts of toolkits and action items and resources for launching a program like this, maintaining a program. What I hoped to do, Mackenzie Magnuson was here earlier. She had to step out to take a call. She and I have a dream of creating a support community for practices that want to do this. There are a lot of places right now who don't find other folks in their community that want to launch programs like this in this moment. So the support needed to encourage one another to do these things and to continue sharing resources and to share stories and successes and failures and troubleshooting kind of conversations is something that we really hope to get off the ground. The resources I promised are linked in the PDF that's in the app. That's a couple pages of those. And I am filled with questions all the time. Anybody else? Does anybody here have a program like this in place, underway in your practice? Yeah. Living into it. That's the beginning of it. Was this at all helpful? Did anybody get insight or inspiration? Anybody want to meditate with the time we have left? We do have just 5 minutes. If folks have questions for me that you don't want to ask publicly, I'll be here for at least the 5 and continuing. Thank you all so much for your attention and for being such good sports in all this. I appreciate you.